Yes guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Maloney's right down there. Listen, a little quick update for you. Hopefully it won't be more than a few, maybe 12 minutes or 13 minutes or so. We'll see how we get on, but smash the granny out of the like button if you enjoy the summer weather. It's an absolute belter today. We're down at Top Golf in Surrey, in Addlestone, and it is a chock-a-block. The car park's jam-packed. The golf course has got probably like an hour and a half wait. People are out having a beer. People are playing foot golf. Maybe I'll be doing a little bit of Y scouting myself over here. It's very interesting to see. Hit the notification bell, guys, if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you enjoy this sort of content. Hit the subscribe button if you don't mind Bugsy's barking. Shut up, girl. Hit the comment section to let me know your thoughts on today's update. As I say, this one's going to be a quick one because it's really about two stories. Two, maybe three stories. Park your animosity, your resentment, your frustrations towards Daniel Levy for a split second with me as I remind you guys that nothing has happened with regards to Richalison. Nothing has happened, right? None of the big ITKs, none of the Ornsteins, the Romanos, the Sky Sportses, the TalkSports, none of these people are talking about Arsenal and Eze. It's literally come from one source who's, I don't know, maybe people calling him the Paul O'Keefe of Arsenal. I'm not sure. That doesn't mean anything. He's saying that Eze has agreed terms with Arsenal, but remember guys, it's silly season. Remember, these people that have a little bit of things to say about a thing or two to say, they also get paid for the clicks and the engagement that they get paid, right? Like similar to me. So like you have to treat everything with a little bit of a pinch of salt, especially from these guys right now. Ben Jacobs says that Tottenham have walked away. They stepped away from Eberechi Eze for the time being. I'm sorry, but like, what does that even mean? That's a nothing burger comment. I love Ben, I've met him. He's a really lovely guy. He's almost as verbose as I am, you know, and I'm sure if he wasn't a journalist, he could be a content creator and turn a 1 minute question and answer session into a 15-minute video to get those CPMs up. Love the guy, but when he said that, it doesn't mean anything. Tottenham have turned their attention, or Tottenham have stepped back. Okay, does that mean that we're off it? No. Does it mean we're on it? No. Does it mean we're forever on it? No. It doesn't mean anything. So everyone's outrage right now is based on nothing burgers. So relax, calm down. But for what it's worth, even if, as I said yesterday, even if Eze doesn't come to Tottenham, even if he stays at Palace, even if he goes to our arch rivals, it doesn't mean that our season's done. It doesn't, there's no reason to have the outrage that there is right now, other than nothing like a good old-fashioned meltdown. And I get it, I hear you. We all love a meltdown. Misery sells more than, you know, than happiness does. But at the same time, guys, let's get a little dose of reality check. Nothing's going on. It's Monday's just around the corner. And here is the story that I wanted to start with, by the way. And Monday, according to this story, is important. So, I've got this story from a West Ham website. I've seen the story about Jacob Ramsey to Tottenham elsewhere this morning, and that's the first kind of like the first name drop for you. Jacob Ramsey to Tottenham, Aston Villa midfielder, a really good midfielder, very clever player, doesn't play enough. He's not the top of the pecking order at Aston Villa. Aston Villa have got themselves in a predicament. They've got a bind with their FFP and their PSR. They're certainly going to fall afoul of UEFA rules with regards to PSR and FFP. Whether they fall afoul of the Premier League rules will be determined by whether or not they, I mean, there's a different set of rules essentially, right? The third-party transactions and things like that are not necessarily the same, or not at all the same for third-party, for financial fair play with regards to the Premier League as it is for with regards UEFA. So we have to consider that and bear that in mind. But here's the story, essentially, that West Ham have put in a bid, or were likely to bid, for Jacob Ramsey. Come over here, please. But Jacob Ramsey is also of interest to Tottenham. Now, West Ham have got their own set of financial issues. West Ham fans are going mental because they got £100 million losses last year, and they're going to already be potentially falling afoul of their own versions of FFP. So keep that in mind, guys, when it comes to December next year, or this year, and January, when we find out about the results of the audits from this year's accounts that finish on Sunday. There's 3 or 4 days left, and the story from West Ham sources is that Aston Villa are in so much problems and West Ham are in so many problems. Not quite as big of a problem at West Ham as it is in Aston Villa's situation, but that West Ham are going to have to sell Mohamed Kudus. Now, as I say, if Tottenham don't buy Eberechi Eze, they might turn their attentions to Mohamed Kudus. It'll be interesting to see whether Tottenham and West Ham will do business. We're an arch rival and we don't really ever do business with each other. But if we did, I don't mind the player. I think a player like him, when motivated, when happy, when played in his right position, under a tutelage of a manager that he respects. I'm not sure if he has really settled into the world of Graham Potter's tenure, and he looks like he's going to be out the door. I would take him at Tottenham. I think he's a really, really good Prem-proven player. And don't forget, for everyone that's saying he's not the guy he was, like, it wasn't that long ago that everybody in the Tottenham fan base was saying, why did we sign Brennan Johnson when we could have signed Mohamed Kudus? Okay, keep that same energy if we can sign him this time, if we do sign him this time, because he's a very, very good player, and I get very much on board it. I get on board any number of about 10 different players that could fill our holes in the wide space at Tottenham Hotspur. But if they're going to sell Mohamed Kudus, they were going to replace him with Jacob Ramsey, according to these reports that are coming from The Guardian. By the way, The Guardian is saying that West Ham are interested in Jacob Ramsey, but both Aston Villa want £40 million for the player, and West Ham and Tottenham, apparently, who are fighting it out for his signature, both want him for less rather than £40 million. Now, the story, according to these West Ham sources that I've seen, and I'm giving this to you with a sprinkle of salt. Right? I don't know whether there's truth to this or not, but there's essentially the West Ham source that I've seen. I looked him up and sort of asked a few people whether it's any good or not, and they were saying it's not bad. They were saying that they reached out and asked the top spokesman for the West Ham owners, Trip Smith, Kinsky, Gold and Sullivan, the Sullivan family and the Gold family, and the top spokesman for the West Ham owners. Again, I don't know, so don't judge me here. I'm just bringing this to your attention. That they said that whilst they admire Jacob Ramsey, that they're not going to bother because they think he's going to Spurs. And it's a quote. They think Jacob Ramsey is going to Tottenham. Now, it sounds like that's too good of a quote to not have got into the mainstream. They're basing it off of Guardian reports. So I don't know, but I'm putting it out there for you. The question marks come, not only is it true, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but let's even just work on the sort of thought experiment here that it might be true. Is Jacob Ramsey the player that you want? Does it make any sense? And does it make any sense at the price point of £40 million? And the third variable is, even if you do like him, and even if you think that £40 million is reasonable, and he's homegrown, and he's English, and all that stuff, do you really want to be helping out a team that are your competitors in every way, shape and form for Champions League spots next season? Like West Ham right now are the victims of a horrendous injustice with regards what happened on the last day of the season. But they also the benefactors of an incredible injustice to everybody else, that the consequences of breaching financial fair play rules are completely out of sync with the benefits of breaching financial fair play rules. If you are someone that has built a team together that has done enough to qualify for Champions League essentially 2 years running, even if it wasn't for a refereeing faux pas on the last day, then they would be in the Champions League. But that team that they built required overspend on salaries and on squad spend relative to your revenue to an extent that got them into the Champions League, that then for whatever reason wasn't necessarily breaching FFP for the Premier League rules, but was for the UEFA rules under the 70% threshold. And the consequence of them breaching means that they'll get a slap on the wrist, as I said in yesterday's video, to the tune of about 1 or 2% of the revenue in which they will generate from participating in the tournament that they only accessed anyway through creating a squad that they couldn't have done if they were behaving by the rules. And the punishment is not just a 2% slap on the wrist financial fine. Well, it is just that, because they still actually get to participate in the competition anyway. So Aston Villa will still get to participate in the Europa League this year. They got to participate in the Champions League last year. If it wasn't for the refereeing faux pas, they'd be in the Champions League again. They would have made, under that environment, circa 180 to £200 million more than they would have done had they not qualified for the Champions League. And you could make the argument the only reason they qualified for the Champions League in the first place is because they spent more money than they're allowed to do. As I've said a few times now, it's the equivalent of a car being available to be stolen across the street. Someone's left the keys in the car. If you sit in the Bentley, you take it for a drive. If you get away with it, good for you. If you don't get away with it, all you get is a couple of hours of community service, but you still get to keep the car. It's a madness. So I don't feel sorry for Aston Villa for what happened to them on the final day of the season. Maybe that was karma. Maybe, we'll see. I don't have any resentment towards the Aston Villa fans. I'm a fan, like, you know, they're just fans. But the club, bending the rules, breaking the rules, it doesn't seem to matter because the consequences are irrelevant. But in any event, do you really want to help them out of a jam by buying a player that, in Jacob Ramsey, that when he plays and he's on, is a very, very, very good player. Very good midfielder. He is a brilliant midfielder. Where does he sit in our pecking order? If I'm entirely honest, I think I wouldn't disagree with the idea that he's a starter in our current 11. I think our midfield is pretty ropey. Certainly not consistent. He doesn't play as many minutes because I think Aston Villa's midfield is sensational. But if Tottenham Hotspur are going to sign him, what's the right price? £40 million, I don't think is a fee that we can afford for a position that isn't crucial right now. He's not a 6. He's not a winger. We need one of those two or a striker as the priority, and that's where our lion's share budget goes. So on that reason, I'm going to say I'm not interested, but I'll double down on my lack of interest because I don't want to help Villa out. I don't want them to take that £40 million, get out of jail for free by selling him, and then guess what they can go and do? And go and buy Douglas Luiz back from Juventus for £20 million. But in the terms of getting that £40 million, they could spin that into £100 million, £120 million of spend with the FFP bandwidth and the wriggle room, and they get to go again. And they're a major threat for us. Their squad is better than ours right now. So I'm not on board it. I'm really not on board it. West Ham United are saying, well, the fan show are saying that Tottenham Hotspur, apparently, according to their ownership spokesperson, is saying that Tottenham Hotspur are about to sign him. If that's the case, I want to know how you guys are going to react. I will react with head scratching and frustration. We shall see. Other story out today, guys, is Coney de Winter, right? Centre back, who's not necessarily just a centre back. He's played as a right back, a left back, both sides of the centre back spot. He's played as a regista. He's played as a 6. He's played as a box to box at times. This guy is a proper versatile player. If you look at him on his stats alone, then you will see an underwhelming player. The reason why we're linked with him is because there is still this ongoing pressure that Tottenham are going to sell QT Romero. I don't think we will, least of all at an undervalued price point. However, there was a story out from Marca, whatever the Italian thing, that was saying that that Atletico Madrid have already signed 3 or 4 players this summer, and they still want to spend 200 million euros more this summer. They still have QT Romero at the top of their priority list, which is great, but they don't think he's worth the 70 million euros that Tottenham are asking. Well, if that's the case, then go off and find yourself someone else, Simone, because you're starting to wind me up with the tapping up of our player. They think they can treat Tottenham Hotspur and Premier League clubs as a place where they can get top money, but they don't want to pay top money for our talent. It's an uneven playing field. I don't like it. But if the story is true from Marca that they are going to spend 200 million euros more, well, if they want Romero, then Daniel Levy isn't going to be a mug here and accept the lower bid, despite how many times he phones up Romero and says maybe it'd be a good idea if you called out your club in a thinly veiled dig on the day that the new manager comes in. All of those tactics are by design. They're not something that he's come up with. They're something that he's been told to do either by the agent, by Simeone, by whoever. Or whoever. Excuse me. The reality is, though, that if he really wants out and he really puts up enough fuss and that there is enough money to make the deal work, then maybe he still will leave. Now, if he doesn't leave, then Tottenham won't be looking for another centre-back this summer, in my opinion. We've got Takai, we've got the rest that we've already had. However, if he does leave, do I think that, you know, Danzo is strong enough to step in as an out-and-out number first choice? I'm not sure he is. I think he's done brilliantly. I'm a big fan of his. But when you also have the reality that Thomas Frank might be looking at a back three at times next season, then you have to think about what's next. Now, unfortunately, if we're looking to calm the fan base down, then Coney de Winter, the Belgium international, is not going to calm you down. He's 23 years old. You're going to look him up on FB Refs, and I'll see if I can put the stats up on the screen for you, and you're going to be underwhelmed. But here's what I would say. Those stats are compared to centre-backs that play centre-back all the time. This guy doesn't. He plays some minutes at full-back, some minutes on the right, some minutes on the left, some minutes he plays as a DM, some minutes he's even played as an 8 in the past. He's a proper all-round player. He's a ball player. His tackling strengths in the final third are almost better as a statistic than his tackling defence in the bottom third, and that's because of the versatility and the variety in which he is used. But when you are being compared to one position on FB Refs, you're being compared to all defenders, and therefore you're going to see things like his offensive stats outperform relative to other centre-backs, because he's at times being used in different positions than centre-backs would normally find themselves in. And because he's playing those minutes, he's also being compared to the things that he does in those roles against centre-backs in the defensive stats. So he's going to look like very much a mixed bag. I haven't even seen his stats, but I can just predict before I put them up in the edit after the fact that he's going to look average. Lots of red, lots of green, lots of orange or whatever it is in between. But don't judge him on that. Go and check him out. If you haven't got Y-Scout, look at the YouTube, but look at him in detail, and you'll see that he is a really, really interesting player, highly rated, and a very, very interesting player. Now, are you going to be satisfied if you're a Tottenham fan that you lose Romero and you get a Coney de Winter? I'll call it right now. You're not going to be satisfied, because you want, if you're going to sell a player that's, you know, a World Cup winner and a Europa League winner and a name like Christian Romero, you're going to want to hear someone like Mark Gahey, or you're going to want to hear someone else in that kind of vein, that top level vein coming in, and it's just not going to happen, guys. Like, Gahey isn't going to come to Tottenham. If he is going to leave Palace at all this summer, he's going to be going to probably Liverpool or Newcastle, and if he does leave at the end of the contract, he's certainly not going to come to Tottenham, because he's only staying at Palace now to pick up a monster wage next year, which we know Tottenham don't pay. So you have to kind of just sort of get on board the reality of the situation, that if Romero leaves, the person that's going to be replacing Romero is going to be the level of a Romero before you knew who Romero was. It's not going to be a top 20 centre-back in the world, but Romero wasn't when he came to Tottenham. We're going to be replacing him with someone that is probably of high potential and highly rated, to the point where you'd hope that maybe in 2 years' time he'll be a top 20 centre-back. I don't think that Romero will leave, because I don't think that anyone's going to pay the money, and we still have 2 years in the contract, so for all intents and purposes the leverage is in Daniel Levy's hands, and I think that right now I think that Romero will stay. However, if it does happen, as I say, I'm not that fussed, but I'm also going to be on board the idea that whoever does come in to replace him will be someone that is not necessarily a name that you're that familiar with, unless you're super in tune with all of the various up-and-comers and the various divisions and clubs in the leagues around Europe. And Coney de Winter is the name that's on the lips of everybody today. So that's about it. I'm sure I'll get another video for you later on, guys, but I'm just out with Bugsy. It's too hot. I'm going for a drink. I'm going to get Bugsy a little glug of water as well. Like, subscribe and comment. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on Jacob Ramsey as well. Most importantly, do you want him? Is the right valuation 40? If not, what's the right price? And also, what do you think about helping Villa out of a jam? I don't want to necessarily be, I don't know, cutting our nose to spite our face here, or whatever the inverse of that would be, by getting a player that you want, but in so doing helping out a team that is suddenly a competitive threat again. That's not something I want to see. I think that we've already got that problem with Manchester United, and I don't want to see it with Aston Villa. Guys, if you're interested, Spotify, the link is in the description. I'm trying to grow that platform. If you are someone that likes to listen to these things or watch them, but on your Spotify app or whatever, the link is in the description. And Instagram is also just started again under the handle at the Spurs Talk Show. Links in the description. I'll see you later on for a live stream. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye bye.